Captain Rachel Torres tightened her gloves as she sat inside the cockpit of her H-64 Apache. The desert air outside was crisp, moonlight casting silver shadows across the Nevada test range. The chopper's engines hummed with restrained power, rotor blades slicing through the quiet night in a steady rhythm. To anyone else, the cockpit might have felt claustrophobic, suffocating. To Rachel, it was freedom. The glass canopy wasn't a barrier, it was her window into a sky that had been her battlefield for years. She leaned forward, checking her instruments. With the precision of habit. Every gauge, every flickering light, every screen mattered. Her life and tonight, her pride depended on them. The Apache was more than a machine to her. It was a companion, a beast she had mastered through sweat, grit, and endless hours in training and combat. She had flown in Afghanistan, weaving, through mountain valleys under fire. She had flown in Iraq, low and steady, while troops depended on her overhead. The Apache had saved her life more times than she could count. In return, she trusted it absolutely. But tonight wasn't combat. Tonight was supposed to be training. Only this wasn't the standard army drill she was used to. There had been whispers in the hangar before the briefing, murmurs traded in hushed voices, and smirks that didn't reach eyes. The Air Force was joining the exercise, and rumor was they weren't just bringing drones or surveillance birds. They were sending fighters. Rachel had laughed when she first heard it. An Apache versus fighter jets? It sounded like a cruel joke. The Army's beloved attack helicopter, designed for close support, up against supersonic predators built. Dominate the skies. Everyone knew the math. A helicopter's top speed couldn't match half the stall speed of an F-16. The fighters would cut her out of the sky before she even saw them. At least, that's what most people thought. Rachel didn't share their certainty. She had been underestimated before by enemies who thought their rockets would force her down, by commanders who doubted her endurance, by fellow pilots who believed she lacked the nerve to push past limits. Every time, she had proven them wrong. That was why she was here, sitting in this cockpit tonight, trusted to represent the Apache in a joint force drill. She wasn't here to roll over. She was here to make them sweat. She adjusted her helmet, the visor slipping into place. The symbology of the helmet-mounted display flickered before her eyes, linking her vision directly to the Apache's targeting systems. Wherever she looked, the crosshairs followed. The technology felt like second nature now. It was more than a tool, it was an extension of her will. The Apache didn't just move because she told it to. It moved because she was it. The radio crackled, breaking the desert stillness. Apache 1, this is Control. You're cleared for departure. Exercise parameters remain in effect. Confirm systems green. Rachel pressed the mic switch. Control, Apache 1. Systems. Green, weapon sim active. Fuel at full. Copy parameters. Her voice was steady, professional. Inside, her heart ticked faster. She knew what parameters meant: free rein, no limits. If the Air Force was playing, they weren't going to hold back. She pulled on the cyclic, the Apache rising from the ground with a growl. Dust swirled beneath her as she lifted into the cool night sky. Ahead stretched the endless black of the desert, broken only by ridges, canyons, and mesas that looked like the bones of a sleeping giant. This was her territory, her hunting ground. The jets might own the upper atmosphere, but down here, close to the earth, she held the advantage. Her eyes scanned the darkness, instruments glowing faintly in green hues. The Apache's sensors picked up faint radar sweeps on the horizon. Not hostile yet, but probing. She smiled, her lips curling beneath the visor. They were already looking. For her. Her thoughts drifted briefly to the hangar earlier that day. She had walked in wearing a flight suit, her helmet tucked under one arm. and caught the eyes of a pair of Air Force pilots lounging by the briefing board. Their patches marked them as F-16 jocks, cocky as they come. One of them had smirked and muttered, not quietly enough, "Guess they're sending helicopters now. Cute." Rachel had paused just long enough to make eye contact, her expression unreadable. She didn't reply, didn't bite back. She didn't need to. She knew something they didn't, that arrogance was a weakness, and she had spent her career exploiting weaknesses. Back in the cockpit, she thought of those smirks and chuckled softly. Let them underestimate her. That would make the victory sweeter. She dipped the Apache low, hugging the ground as she swept toward a canyon system she had memorized during the flight briefing. The desert was her ally. She had spent hours studying maps, rehearsing escape routes, plotting ambush points. The Air Force would rely on speed and altitude. She would rely on cunning and patience. Apache 1, Control, the radio buzzed. Stand by. Exercise opponents are airborne. Her pulse spiked. This was it. The game had started. She adjusted her position, keeping her bird below the radar horizon. Her screens flickered again, more pings, stronger now. They were closing. 2 signatures, climbing fast, slicing through the night. F-16s. Rachel's grip tightened on them. Cyclic. She inhaled slowly, steadying her breath. Fear never helped in the cockpit. Calm decisions did. She thought of Afghanistan again, of a night when her Apache had taken heavy fire while supporting ground troops pinned by insurgents. Rockets had lit up the mountain slopes, tracers ripping past her canopy. She had stayed low, weaving through valleys, refusing to abandon the soldiers on the ground. That night, the Apache had brought every man home alive. And it had taught her something vital. Helicopters weren't meant to outrun danger. They were meant to outthink it. Now, as the F-16S bore down on her, Rachel felt the same clarity settle over her. The jets had the speed. She had the ground. She had the shadows. And she had a plan. The first fighter's radar lock warning screeched in her headset. She glanced. At the screen, saw the lock tone flashing bright. She grinned. Found me already, huh? She murmured. Her thumb hovered over the countermeasure switch. In a real fight, this would mean flares, chaff, frantic maneuvers to break the lock. But in tonight's simulated game, it meant deception. It meant tricking them into chasing shadows while she set the stage for her counterattack. The second radar lock followed. Both fighters had her pinned. To them, it must have seemed like the end of the story. Rachel tilted her head, the Apache dipping low again, blades slicing dangerously close to rock outcroppings. The radar lock flickered, struggled, vanished. She was in the canyon now, invisible to their line of sight. Above, the jets thundered. Past, overshooting. Rachel laughed softly, the sound filling her helmet. Not so fast, boys. The controllers in the command center leaned forward, watching the screens. Already, the Apache was rewriting the script. What had been expected to end quickly had just turned into something far more interesting. Rachel steadied her hands on the controls, eyes locked on her HUD. The hunt had begun. She was no longer just the target. She was the predator, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And she was only getting started. The desert sky was vast, moonlight casting pale streaks across the ridges below. To the F-16 pilots climbing into the blackness, it felt like flying into an endless hunting ground. Captain Daniel Reeves and Lieutenant Kyle Stinger Brooks had done this 1,000 times before scramble. Lock, target, eliminate. It was second nature, drilled into their bones since flight school. Tonight was no different. Or so they thought. Reeves grinned inside his helmet as his afterburners flared, launching his jet upward. Control Falcon 2 airborne. Falcon 3. On my wing. His voice carried the confidence of a man used to winning. He'd flown combat sorties over Syria, intercepting enemy aircraft, tearing through hostile skies. A helicopter, no matter how advanced, was nothing to him. On his wing, Brooks smirked, settling into formation. "Seriously, Dan? They're making us hunt a chopper? That's like putting a wolf against a rabbit." Reeves chuckled. "Don't underestimate rabbits. They can run." "Yeah," Brooks replied, "but not from us. Far below, hidden in shadow." Rachel Torres heard the roar of their engines through her headset. Her instruments flickered, picking up their radar sweeps. The lock wasn't tight yet, but she could feel their presence pressing down like predators circling. She took a slow breath, steadying her hands. Her Apache vibrated beneath her, alive, eager. "They're up," she murmured, voice calm. She remembered their smirks in the hangar earlier, the way they dismissed her before even knowing her name. That memory fueled her focus. This wasn't about proving helicopters were equal to jets. This was about proving she was not prey. She pushed the cyclic forward, dropping altitude until the ground seemed to brush beneath her skids. Dust whipped up as the Apache hugged the desert floor, its radar signature melting into terrain clutter above. The F-16 spread wide, their radars sweeping arcs across the sky. Reeves locked his eyes on his display. A faint blip appeared, disappeared, reappeared. His grin widened. "There you are." He tightened his grip on the stick, nudging his jet. "Lower. Falcon 2 has contact. Range 30. Closing fast." Brooks laughed over comms. "Already? Guess the Army didn't train their girl to hide very well." Rachel heard the warning tone in her headset, a piercing shriek that meant she was painted by radar. She glanced at her screen, saw the green. Triangle flashing. 2 jets, both closing. Any other pilot might have panicked. She smiled. "All right," she whispered. "Let's see how hungry you are." Instead of pulling up, Rachel cut lower, skimming just feet above the desert floor. The Apache's rotor wash tore at sagebrush and sent ripples of sand into the night. Her HUD flickered, lock tones breaking as the terrain masked her signature. Reeves cursed. "She's gone." "No way," Brooks said. "A helicopter can't just vanish." But she had. Inside her cockpit, Rachel chuckled. She remembered something her first flight instructor told her years ago. A jet owns the sky, but a helicopter owns the earth. Jets needed room to maneuver, speed to fight, altitude to strike. A helicopter didn't. It thrived in places jets feared: valleys, ridges, tight canyons, places where speed meant nothing. Rachel banked hard, following the natural curve of a dry riverbed. The Apache tilted almost sideways, blades slicing dangerously close to rock. Dust and shadows swallowed her whole. The radar warning tone faded, replaced by silence. Above, Reeves and Brooks banked wide, frustrated. "She's playing games," Reeves muttered. "Control. Falcon 2 lost radar lock. Adjusting search pattern." Control's voice came back cool and clipped. "Copy. Exercise continues. Visual acquisition authorized." Rachel smirked at that. Visual acquisition. In the dark desert, with a helicopter running blacked out, they'd have better luck finding a needle in a haystack. Still, she knew she couldn't stay hidden forever. They'd flush her out eventually, force her into open desert. But that was fine. She wasn't running to hide. She was running to set the stage. The Apache groaned as she climbed a ridge, rotor blades straining. She crested the top, then dropped again into a narrow canyon. Her screen lit up as she activated her simulated weapon systems. Hellfires, rockets, chain gun. All fake tonight, but real enough in her hands. Rachel's grin widened. The game wasn't about firepower. It was about mind games. Above, Reeves scowled at his HUD. "She's down there. I know it. She's hugging terrain. Wants to drag us low. Good. Brooks replied. Let's drag her out. Put her in the open. They banked together, engines howling, afterburners lighting the sky as they swept toward the canyon system. Rachel listened to the faint rumble of their approach. She could almost picture them, two sleek predators cutting through the night. Convinced they were closing in, she steadied her breathing, her mind calm. She had flown under rocket fire, through tracer storms, across landscapes far more unforgiving than this. Tonight was just another test, and she loved tests. Her radar warning blared again. One jet had a partial lock. She let it happen, staying low, waiting. At the last second, she veered hard right, cutting behind a ridge. The lock broke instantly. In the command center, officers leaned closer to screens. Some muttered under their breath. The fighter should have had her by now. Yet the Apache was slipping away, again and again. Rachel's voice crackled over comms, calm, almost teasing. Is that the best you've got? Brooks growled. Did she mock us? Reeves clenched his jaw. Focus, she's good, but she's still a hello. She'll make a mistake. Rachel smiled as she cut power, the Apache sinking into a hover beneath an overhang of rock. She killed her external lights completely. To the sky above, she no longer existed. Minutes passed. The jets circled, their radar beams washing over. Empty ground. They soared overhead, searching, frustrated. In her cockpit, Rachel sat still, hands poised, eyes locked on her displays. She could hear the whine of their engines fading, then growing louder as they looped back. She waited. Patience was her weapon now. Finally, she eased the cyclic forward, sliding silently from the shadows. Her radar painted one of the jets, just for a moment. The system beeped, indicating a potential lock. She didn't fire, didn't announce. She just smiled at the green glow, then cut away before they could detect her. Reeves' radar screamed a warning. He jolted in his seat. What the? Did she painted you? Brooks asked in disbelief. Reeves swore. No way, but yes. Rachel pulled the Apache into another canyon, laughter bubbling inside her helmet. She wasn't reckless, wasn't arrogant. She knew how dangerous these jets were. But she also knew she had just shifted the balance. The hunters were beginning to realize the rabbit had teeth. Far below the roaring fighters, her voice whispered through the radio, low and confident. Catch me if you can. The desert swallowed her again. The game had only begun. The Apache skimmed the desert floor like a predator cloaked in shadow. Its rotor wash stirred sand into swirling ghosts that dissolved into the night. Inside the cockpit, Captain Rachel Torres moved with fluid precision, every adjustment smooth, instinctive. She wasn't just flying, she was weaving. Her radar screen pulsed with hostile sweeps. The F-16s were circling again, their radar beams combing. The canyons hunting for her. They expected a frightened pilot running out of room. Instead, Rachel's lips curled into a grin. This wasn't retreat. This was stagecraft. She wasn't their prey. She was the one setting the stage for the kill. The warning tone shrieked. In her headset again, a partial lock. She didn't fight it. Instead, she pressed the weapon's simulation panel, toggling a Hellfire launch sequence. Her targeting system beeped, registering a fire. Above her, Captain Daniel Reeves' HUD blinked with a sudden missile alert. His stomach dropped. Fox warning. He barked. His jet screamed upward in a defensive climb, chaff dispensers releasing virtual countermeasures. But the sky was empty. Brooks, his wingman, roared with laughter. She just faked you, Dan. A helicopter bluffed you. Reeves' jaw tightened. She won't do it twice. Rachel chuckled to herself. hearing their chatter through the exercise. Frequency. She had no need to gloat, her laughter carried enough. It was sharp, light, utterly calm. Not forced, not nervous, genuine amusement. She was enjoying herself. That laughter cut deeper than any missile could. From the command center, rows of Army and Air Force officers watched the blips dance across their screens. The Apache should have been cornered within minutes. Instead, it was outmaneuvering fighter jets like a street racer dodging police cruisers. Unbelievable, an Army colonel muttered, unable to hide his grin. She's toying with them. The Air Force liaison. Officer beside him scowled. This isn't over. She's on borrowed time. Down in the cockpit of Falcon 2, Reeves clenched the throttle. All right, Brooks, no more games. We drag her into the open. Push her west. Flat terrain, no cover. Copy that. The jets banked in unison, afterburners flaring as they dove low, their thunder rolling across the canyons. Rachel felt the sea. Pressure building. They wanted to herd her into a kill zone, strip away her shadows. She could almost admire the tactic, except it was predictable. She tightened her grip, veered hard left, and pitched the Apache into a brutal sideways maneuver. The helicopter tilted nearly 90 degrees, hugging the canyon wall as if glued to it. Dust exploded beneath her, rock so close it seemed like a blade's edge might scrape it. The F-16s overshot again, their turn radius too wide, their speed working against them. Damn it! Brooks growled, banking hard to realign. Rachel's laughter crackled over the radio again, this time clearer, sharper. You boys sure fly fast, but fast doesn't always mean smart. Reeves' teeth ground together. Control, request permission to tighten engagement parameters. The controller's voice was calm, almost clinical, negative. Exercise. Parameters remain. Maintain current rules of engagement. Translation. You're stuck with her rules. Rachel exhaled slowly, her grin never fading. She pressed her weapon systems again, firing a simulated rocket barrage into empty desert. Her Apache's nose lit up with flame on their sensors. The jets reacted instantly, pulling vertical, twisting upward to avoid the phantom barrage. In the command center, one of the evaluators shook his head in disbelief. She's hurting them. It was true. The helicopter pilot, supposedly outclassed, was dictating tempo. Rachel leaned back in her seat, sweat sliding down her temple, though her mind remained razor-sharp. Her heart pounded, but it wasn't fear. It was exhilaration. This was the edge she lived for, the razor line between brilliance and destruction. Her Apache banked again, rotors shrieking in protest, maneuvering through a narrow canyon that split into two forks. She dipped into the left fork, then at the last second flared right, slipping behind an outcrop. The jets split, each taking one canyon. For a heartbeat, both lost her. Reeves' radar lit empty. Brooks' radar lit empty. Rachel sat hidden, her Apache hovering low, rotors thumping. She counted silently in her head. 1, 2, 3, then she popped out, lifting just high. Enough to target Reeves' F-16 from behind. Her HUD crosshairs turned green. Lock achieved. Fox 3, she whispered into her mic, her voice playful. Reeves' cockpit blared with missile lock alarms. He jolted in shock, yanking his stick. She's on my 6. She's Falcon 2, you are hit. The controller's voice cut in coldly. Kill confirmed. Silence filled the radio. Brooks' eyes widened as he glanced across the canyon at Reeves' blip blinking dead. What the hell just happened? In the command center, Army officers erupted in cheers, slapping each other on the back. The Air Force side sat frozen, their confidence shaken. Rachel's laughter floated across the comms again, rich and unshaken. Not mocking, simply savoring the art of it. one down. Reeves swore as he pulled his jet into a recovery climb. Exercise rules forcing him dead from the scenario. He slammed his fist against the canopy frame, frustration boiling. He had been played by a helicopter. Brooks' voice cut in, sharp and angry. "All right, lady. You got lucky once. Let's see you try me." Rachel leaned forward, her eyes burning with focus. Gladly. She pulled her Apache back into the canyon, her laughter echoing once more. The cat had turned into the mouse again. But the mouse had already proven it had claws. And the night sky was far from finished. Rachel's breath came slow and steady. Her hands calm on the controls, but her voice over the net carried the perfect note of strain. "Control, Apache 1. They've got me locked. Repeat, I'm pinned." She let just enough tension crackle through her tone to sell it. Theatrical, but not overdone. She knew the controllers were listening, and more importantly, she knew the pilots circling above were listening too. In Falcon 3, Lieutenant Kyle's stinger, Brooks grinned. He could hear the stress in her words. Finally, she was breaking. "She's running scared," he said into comms. "Let's box her in." From the sidelines, Captain Daniel Reeves, already declared killed in the exercise, listened silently, frustration burning in his chest. He knew better than to gloat. Something about the Apache pilot didn't sit right with him. She wasn't the type to panic. Still, Brooks believed it, and that was all Rachel needed. She pushed her Apache higher, into the flat desert beyond the ridges. It was exactly what the fighters wanted. Open terrain, no cover, no hiding spots. Her helicopter stood out against the barren earth, like a dark insect under a spotlight. Her radar warning screamed again as Brooks tightened his lock. "Gotcha," Brooks muttered, nudging his jet down. He pushed the throttle, eager to close distance, his F-16 eating the miles like fire racing across dry grass. Rachel gritted her teeth, allowing her voice to rise just a notch. "Control, I can't shake him." She threw the Apache into a wide, imperfect turn, letting her movements look clumsy. The jets tightened the noose. In the command center, officers leaned forward. Some whispered, "She's losing it." They forced her into the open. Only a few Army officers, veterans of watching Apaches in combat, exchanged knowing glances. They recognized the act. Rachel Torres wasn't losing. She was luring. Her eyes flicked to her map display. Ahead, the terrain shifted 2 mesas, rising like giant sentinels, their stone flanks creating a canyon. Wide enough for her blades, too tight for fighters to maneuver. She had studied this area hours before takeoff. It wasn't random. It was her chosen battlefield. She steadied her breathing, her grin hidden beneath her visor. Almost there. Falcon 3, she's wide open. "Take the shot," Control instructed. Brooks laughed, with pleasure. His targeting computer beeped, registering a simulated missile lock. His HUD flashed green. He was seconds from calling a kill. Rachel shoved her collective forward, the Apache lurching ahead, engines straining. She barreled straight into the canyon. The walls rose on either side, swallowing her in shadow. "Dumb move," Brooks muttered, banking to follow. "Now you're trapped." But as he dove into the canyon, his jet fought him. The walls pressed. Too close. His radar lock flickered. He pulled harder on the stick, wings tilting dangerously. Damn it. Rachel was already moving. She yanked her cyclic, pulling the Apache into a knife-edge bank so tight her harness dug into her shoulders. The helicopter slid into the canyon's bend, hugging rock like a shadow. Brooks overshot instantly, his jet too fast, too wide. By the time he adjusted, Rachel had dropped collective, the Apache sinking low into a dive. The F-16 screamed past above her, momentum carrying it forward. In a flash, roles reversed. Rachel was behind him. Her targeting system sang, the HUD painting a perfect lock. Her finger tapped the trigger. "Fox 3, she said calmly, voice low, steady. Brooks' cockpit blared. His heart stopped. "No." The controller's voice cut sharp and final. "Falcon 3, kill confirmed." Silence fell over the channel. Rachel exhaled, her grin spreading as adrenaline surged. She had them. She had all of them. In the command center, chaos erupted. Army officers cheered, slapping tables. Air Force personnel sat stunned, faces pale. No one had predicted this. A helicopter had just outmaneuvered jets in their own sky. Reeves, still sidelined, let out a long breath. His respect for the Apache pilot deepened with every passing second. She hadn't just won. She had played them, back in. Her cockpit, Rachel chuckled, her laughter filling the radio net. Not cruel, not mocking, simply the laughter of a pilot who had pulled off the impossible and loved every second of it. "Two down," she murmured. Her Apache roared forward, climbing. Out of the canyon, blades shimmering in moonlight. The desert stretched ahead, quiet once more. But she knew the silence wouldn't last. The exercise wasn't over. More jets would come. Her fuel was lower now, her systems hot from the strain, but Rachel didn't care. She was alive, burning. With adrenaline, and the night was hers to command. Control. Apache 1. Targets eliminated. Standing by for next engagement. Her voice was steady again, calm as ever. Theatrical panic gone, replaced by razor-focused. In the command center, one of the generals whispered, half to himself, "She's not flying a helicopter. She's flying her will." Rachel leveled her bird, eyes scanning the horizon. She had proven. Her trap worked. She had shown the impossible could be done. But deep down, she knew this was only round one, and the sky still had many battles left to erupt. The Apache climbed out of the canyon like a phantom, blades churning the desert air. With furious rhythm. Rachel's visor reflected the pale glow of her cockpit screens. Her lips curved in a grin that she couldn't suppress. 2 jets down. A record no one in the command center had believed possible. Her comms crackled with silence, the kind of silence that spoke volumes. The Air Force pilots weren't celebrating. They were stunned, recalibrating everything they thought they knew about the exercise. Finally, a voice broke through. Major Adrian Viper Cross, Falcon leader. Calm, clipped, but with an edge of steel. "Falcon flight, regroup. This isn't over." Rachel tilted her head, listening, smiling faintly. Viper was their best, their tactician. He wouldn't make the same mistakes Brooks had. He would come at her methodically, cold, precise. That made him dangerous, but it also made him predictable. "Apache 1, status?" the controller asked. Rachel's tone was cool, steady. "Apache 1, combat ready, standing by." No hint of strain, no act this time. She wanted them to know she wasn't shaken. From his cockpit, Viper scanned his HUD, his jaw clenched. The humiliation of losing 2 jets to a helicopter was already spreading across the frequencies. His squadron's pride was bleeding. He wouldn't let it go unanswered. "Falcon 4 with me. We're ending this." Rachel caught their radar sweeps long before she saw them. The warning tones pulsed steadily, her cockpit alive with data. 2 fighters circling in, opposite angles, a textbook pincer. They wanted to box her in again, but this time smarter, slower, careful. She let them. Her Apache glided low, blades slicing through the night. She pretended to turn into open ground again, as though repeating her earlier mistake. Her heart thudded once hard, then steadied. She was ready. The jets closed. Cross's voice was calm, steady. "Falcon 4, hold position. Force her low." "Rachel." feigned hesitation, tugging her helicopter just slightly off balance. Her engines strained audibly as though she were desperate to accelerate. "Control. She's mine," Viper announced, confidence dripping from his words. But Rachel had already chosen her battlefield. Ahead, the desert floor dipped into a dry riverbed, shallow but long, its curves winding like a serpent. Perfect cover for a helicopter that knew how to use it. She dropped collective, her Apache skimming the ground, the rotors stirring dust devils. In her wake, Falcon 4, stay high, Viper ordered. She can't hide there forever. Rachel's lips quirked. Forever wasn't the plan. She only needed seconds. Her eyes darted to her display, tracking their angles. She waited until the fighters leaned just a fraction too far into their turn. Then she pulled. The Apache surged upward, climbing sharply out of the riverbed, nose tilting to the sky. Her HUD lit up instantly. Falcon 4 was in her sights. Perfectly exposed. Her targeting crosshair snapped green. The lock tone screamed. "Fox 2, Rachel said flatly, squeezing the trigger. The controller's voice followed a heartbeat later, calm but edged with disbelief. "Falcon 4, kill." Confirmed. For a moment, no one breathed. Rachel exhaled slowly, letting her grin widen. Another one down. 3 jets eliminated in less than an hour. Her laughter broke across the comms again, light and sharp. Not cruel, not mocking, just the unrestrained joy of a pilot flying on instinct, riding the razor edge of danger and victory. The command center erupted. Army officers punched fists in the air, roaring with pride. Air Force personnel sat rigid, jaws clenched, the sting of humiliation cutting deeper. General Hayes, standing with arms folded, shook his head slowly. Unbelievable. She's dismantling them piece by piece. Across the room, an Air Force colonel muttered, "It's a fluke. A lucky shot. She can't keep this up." But even he didn't sound convinced. In the sky, Viper's breathing tightened. He hadn't underestimated her. He had studied her moves, tried to corner her. And still, she had found a way to kill his wingman. His voice hardened, ice replacing calm. "Apache 1, you've had your fun, but the game ends with me." Rachel tilted her head, chuckling softly. "Then let's finish it." The duel was set. Viper rolled his jet wide, gaining altitude, choosing open sky. He wanted clean lines, no terrain tricks. He wanted to crush her head on, to erase the stain she had left on his squadron's pride. Rachel steadied her Apache, eyes glinting behind her visor. She knew the math. She knew his speed, his climb, his turn radius. On paper, the jet should destroy her. But Rachel Torres never lived on paper. She lived in the sky. And she wasn't finished rewriting the rules. The desert stretched wide and endless, painted in shades of gray under the pale moon. Rachel's Apache hovered low, its rotors chopping the silence into ragged pieces. Above, Major Adrian Viper Cross circled in his F-16, patient, controlled, every move a calculated line drawn in the sky. The hunt had become personal. Rachel adjusted her grip on the cyclic, steady but loose. Her heart rate barely climbed, though she could feel the weight of every eye in the command center pressing down on her. 3 kills. That was already history. But this duel wasn't about numbers anymore. This was about proving that a helicopter could stare down a fighter. Jet and win. Apache 1. Viper's voice cut through the comms, deep and cold. "You've embarrassed my squadron. That ends now." Rachel smirked, leaning into the mic. "Funny, from where I'm sitting, I'd say the night's been pretty entertaining." Her laughter rippled again, sharp and unshaken, carrying into the cockpit of every listener. It rattled Viper more than he admitted. He leveled his jet, rolling into a climbing turn. The afterburner roared, painting the night with fire. He wanted her in the open, no canyons, no riverbeds, no tricks. Just sky against sky. Rachel obliged, or at least appeared to. She lifted collective, her Apache rising steadily, blades straining. Against the thin air. To the control room, it looked reckless. To Viper, it looked desperate. "Command," one Air Force colonel muttered. "She's insane. Climbing into his domain is suicide." General Hayes only folded his arms. His eyes stayed on the display, quiet. He had seen Rachel's kind before pilots who rewrote doctrine, who saw patterns others missed. Hayes wasn't ready to call her reckless. Viper locked radar, the steady tone echoing in his headset. He had her. His thumb hovered over the simulated missile release. "Fox 2, he called, firing. The controller system registered instantly. "Apache 1, missile inbound." Rachel's jaw tightened. She had no flares, no speed. What she had was instinct. She dropped collective hard. The Apache nosed over, diving toward the desert floor. Alarm screamed in her cockpit as her altitude plummeted. Viper cursed, jerking into a dive of his own, unwilling to lose lock. But Rachel was already banking sharp left, cutting into her own rotor wash, using the turbulence to bleed speed faster than physics should have allowed. The simulated missile streaked past harmlessly, missing by dozens of feet. "Missile evaded," the controller confirmed, disbelief seeping into his tone. The command room erupted. Army officers slapped desks, shouting. Air Force brass sat rigid, fury tightening their jaws. Viper didn't celebrate or curse. He recalculated. One missile wasted. She had tricked him into overspeeding. But that wouldn't happen again. Rachel steadied her Apache just feet above the desert, skimming dust. She grinned to herself, hearing her own breath echo in her helmet. She wasn't just flying, she was dancing with death. "Still here, Viper," she taunted softly. He growled, rolling into another attack. This time he came low, hot, trying to force her into a climb she couldn't sustain. The Apache shook violently as his jet screamed past, sonic pressure rattling. Her frame. Rachel didn't flinch. She turned with him, her helmet sight aligning, her display flashing. The crosshair blinked amber, not green close, but not enough. She waited. Viper banked wide, expecting her to lag. Instead, Rachel twisted her Apache into an almost impossible yaw turn, pivoting sharply without gaining altitude. Her nose swung, fast, locking for a heartbeat on his tail. The crosshair snapped green. "Fox 2, she whispered. The controller's voice cut in. "Falcon leader, kill confirmed." For 2 full seconds, the room was silent. Rachel leaned back, laughing. Lightly. "Guess you'll need a new calcine, Viper." The Army side roared. Officers pounded tables, shouting, their pride spilling over. The Air Force contingent erupted too, but in anger. Shouts overlapped, accusations flew, voices rising in disbelief. General Hayes silenced them with a single word. "Enough?" He stared at the board, at the blinking markers that told the story. An Apache helicopter had just defeated the Air Force's top fighter ace in open sky. Viper's voice finally returned, low but edged with reluctant respect. "Well flown." "Apache 1, well flown." Rachel's grin softened. She heard the truth under his words. He was angry, humiliated even, but he knew. She had earned his respect, maybe even his admiration. The controller cleared his throat. Exercise continuing. Remaining Falcons, engage. Rachel straightened, resetting her focus. There were still more jets in the sky. Her night wasn't over. But the duel was won. She whispered to herself, so low the mic barely caught it. One more page in the book. Above her, the sky stretched wide, waiting. And Rachel Torres was far from finished. The desert night had grown colder, but Rachel's blood was burning. 4 jets remained. They circled high above, engines roaring, missiles armed, strategy in mind, intent on ending her streak. Her Apache's rotor hummed steadily beneath her, but inside she felt exhilaration, focus, and a sharp thrill that made her laugh softly. "They're coming," she whispered, eyes scanning her HD. The radar painted arcs of green predators circling above. They weren't just fast. They were coordinated, trying to trap her from multiple angles, anticipating every turn she might make. Rachel leaned into the cyclic, feeling every vibration. She knew their plan before it fully formed. Open terrain to draw her out. Split her. Maneuvers. Force overshoot. Lock on. Kill dot. She had no intention of complying. The first jet dove from the north, screaming toward her position. She yanked her collective, the Apache rising in a violent arc, skimming the canyon edge, rotowash kicking up clouds of dust and grit. The jet overshot, forced to pull up to avoid the terrain. Fox 2, the controller confirmed in simulation. The first strike against her attackers was already symbolic a warning. Rachel's laughter rippled through the comms, light but defiant. "Careful, boys. You're going to get dizzy chasing shadows." The remaining 3 jets adjusted, working. Together now, coming at her from opposite sides. Viper's voice came over the net. "She's clever, but not invincible. Don't underestimate her again. Coordinate your strike." Coordination meant nothing in the wrong terrain. Rachel banked her Apache sharply, weaving between canyons and dry riverbeds, her helicopter almost brushing jagged rock walls. She could hear the simulated missiles screaming past, each one dodged by inches. The warning alarms blared, but she didn't falter. She wasn't running. She was performing artful, precise, deadly. One jet pulled wide, attempting to intercept. Rachel feigned a climb, then dove sharply, hugging the canyon floor. The jet's speed betrayed it. It overshot, forced into a steep climb, losing positional advantage. She let out another sharp laugh. "Fox 2, she muttered. Another simulated kill confirmed. 2 jets down in less than 2 minutes. Now, only 1 remained. It was the last hope of the Air Force squadron. The pilot, adrenaline pumping, attempted the classic intercept. He came low, trying to corner her into open desert. He banked tight, expecting to cut off her escape routes. Rachel tilted her head, watching the pattern. She had studied this moment. She knew how jets operated, how their physics limited them, and how the Apache could exploit the limits. She veered. Slightly, just enough to bait him. He followed blindly, a predator convinced of his prey's desperation. Then, at the last moment, she pulled the Apache into a nearly impossible knife-edge turn, blades slicing the night air. Her nose swung up, locking onto him instantly. "Fox 3, she whispered. The controller's voice confirmed. "Falcon 6, kill confirmed." Silence fell over the comms for a heartbeat. Then Rachel laughed again. It was bright, clear, triumphant. The laughter of someone who had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious. From the command center, officers were on their feet. Army. Brass cheered, Air Force personnel were stunned, and General Hayes' face broke into a rare smile. She's done it. All remaining targets eliminated. The remaining F-16 pilot, bewildered, muttered under his breath, "She's unreal. How is this possible?" Rachel leveled her Apache, skimming the desert floor as the adrenaline gradually ebbed. Her body ached, her rotors hot from constant maneuvering, but her mind was electric. She had turned an impossible scenario into a flawless victory. She looked out across the desert, moonlight shimmering on the ridges, and let herself savor the moment. Each jet taken down wasn't just a victory for skill, it was proof of something greater. Helicopters weren't second-class aircraft. Pilots weren't bound by stereotypes. Rachel Torres had rewritten the rules. The command center erupted in celebration, the applause echoing even through her radio, but she barely noticed. She was already plotting her exit, scanning the terrain ahead, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a job, not just done, but perfected. Her voice finally came over the comms. Calm, steady, confident. Apache 1, mission complete. Returning to base. In the cockpits of the F-16s, pilots were silent, stunned, humbled. Viper's earlier respect had only deepened. Rachel had not just defeated them, she had dominated the airspace, turned the desert into her canvas, and executed tactics no one had thought possible. Rachel's laughter echoed one final time over the comms, light and triumphant, carrying across the desert night. She wasn't boastful. She wasn't mocking. She was celebrating excellence, precision, and the sheer thrill of mastery. A night sky stretched above her, endless, serene, as if acknowledging her supremacy. And for a brief moment, the Apache and its pilot were not merely machines and human. They were a single force, perfect and untouchable. She glanced down at the HUD one last time. Every green lock was gone, every threat neutralized. And in that moment, Rachel Torres understood that skill, courage, and confidence could conquer even the fastest predators in the sky. And the desert, silent once again, bore witness to it all. The first light of dawn crept over the desert ridges, painting them in muted gold and silver. Rachel Torres guided her Apache steadily toward base, the hum of the rotors now a steady heartbeat beneath her. The night's adrenaline had ebbed, leaving a quiet satisfaction in its place, the kind that comes only from a mission executed perfectly against impossible odds. Her visor reflected the sun's early rays, glinting against the desert sand below. Each dune, each jagged ridge had been a silent witness to her skill, her courage, and her audacious mastery. She let herself breathe slowly, savoring the stillness. For hours, she had danced with fighter jets, outmaneuvered the best, and emerged victorious. No one had predicted this outcome. Perhaps not even she had believed it was truly possible, until it had happened. The comms crackled alive as the command center came online, voices bubbling with relief and disbelief. Apache 1, welcome back. Status report, the controller said, trying to sound composed but failing. Rachel adjusted. Her grip on the cyclic, her voice calm but proud. Apache 1, all targets neutralized. Mission complete. Returning to base. A chorus of exclamations filled the radio channels. Army officers cheered, slapping each other on the back. The Air Force pilots, previously confident and brimming with pride, were silent, humbled by the unprecedented skill they had just witnessed. Even Major Adrian Viper's cross-measured voice carried a rare undertone of respect. Outstanding flight, Torres. I've never seen anything like that, he admitted, a hint of awe threading through his tone. Rachel allowed herself a small smile, hearing the acknowledgement of her peers. The night had tested her, pushed her to the edge of every physical and mental limit, and she had passed with precision, creativity, and courage. As she approached the base, the horizon opened into familiar shapes, the control towers, the hangars, the flat runways. Every detail felt sharper now, almost sacred, a testament to the quiet, ordinary world that existed beneath the extraordinary feat she had just completed. In the command center, General Hayes leaned back, eyes glinting with satisfaction. She didn't just win, he said softly, almost to himself. She rewrote the rules. Helicopters aren't just support. And a pilot isn't just a cog in a machine. Torres proved that tonight. Rachel eased the Apache down onto the tarmac, the skids grinding against the surface. Dust swirled in golden sunlight as she cut the engines, the rotors slowing to a stop. Silence fell over the landing zone, a sharp contrast to the roaring chaos of the night. It was as if the desert itself exhaled, acknowledging the end of the battle. Climbing down from the cockpit, Rachel felt the heat of the sun on her skin, the cool metal of the Apache beneath her hands. She allowed herself a deep, grounding breath, appreciating the tactile reality of the world after hours of high speed. Aerial ballet. She looked up at the sky she had dominated, its vast expanse now serene and untouched, as if it too recognized her triumph. A group of her fellow pilots and instructors approached, expressions a mixture of disbelief, admiration, and curiosity. Some shook her hand. Others simply nodded, silent acknowledgement of the night's extraordinary events. "Captain Torres," one young pilot finally asked, voice hesitant, How did you do it? You faced faster jets, multiple targets, and you won. Every single one?" Rachel let out a soft laugh, light and melodic, echoing over the concrete. "Apron. Focus, timing, and understanding your opponent," she said simply. "I didn't just fly. I listened, watched, and predicted. You have to think 3 steps ahead, sometimes more." Her laughter lingered, carrying a note of joy, defiance, and celebration. It wasn't arrogance. It wasn't mocking. It was the sound of someone who had tested limits, conquered fear, and proven that skill, preparation, and instinct could overcome even the most daunting odds. Viper approached, his usual composure tempered by humility. "I underestimated you. Torres, you didn't just fly tonight. You taught all of us a lesson." She looked at him, her grin sharp but respectful. "And maybe you'll think twice next time, before assuming a helicopter is just a slow bird in the sky." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Not likely, but I'll remember this flight." Rachel glanced around at the aircraft, the hangars, the early morning light spilling across the desert. It was a world that would return to normal soon enough. Planes taking off, training missions beginning, life moving on. Yet tonight, something extraordinary had occurred. She had changed how people thought about air combat, how they thought about pilots, and how they thought about the Apache itself. As she walked toward the operations building, her helmet tucked under her arm, Rachel allowed herself a final glance. Skyward. The faint echoes of her laughter from the night seemed to hang there, lingering in the morning light, a reminder of the impossible made real. In the quiet corridors of the base, officers were already replaying the simulations, discussing tactics, and analyzing her maneuvers. Every movement, every calculated risk she had taken, every instance of instinct and precision was under scrutiny. And yet, even under the most intense analysis, her performance remained beyond replication. Rachel Torres, the Apache pilot who had faced the United States Air Force's finest in open sky, was not just a participant. She was a master. Her triumph would echo long after the day's operations resumed. Her laughter, the signal of her confidence and audacity, would be remembered as the sound of someone who dared to defy expectation. As the sun climbed higher, she finally allowed herself to breathe fully, free from the tension of combat. She knew she had done more than survive. She had dominated, amazed, and inspired. The legend of this night, of a single Apache and its extraordinary pilot, was already taking shape. And somewhere in the back of her mind, Rachel knew the sky would always call her back, waiting for the next challenge, the next impossible scenario to test her skill, courage, and spirit. But for now, she had triumphed. She had flown, fought, and conquered. And as she finally allowed the echoes of her laughter to fade into the morning light, the desert seemed to hold its breath, paying homage to a pilot who had danced with death, toys with fate, and emerged victorious. The Apache sat silent, gleaming under the dawn sun. Rachel Torres stood tall, a hero of skill, courage, and audacity, her laughter now a quiet memory that would resonate far beyond the desert, echoing in stories, simulations, and legends of air. Combat for years to come. The sky, once a battlefield, now stretched wide and serene a canvas forever touched by her mastery.